Welcome back to the Further North podcast, guys. We've recruited again. Joel is back because we're only a few days out from the draft and we need to dive into some more draft chat before we can dissect everything that happens. Obviously, draft day is the day that we're going to either praise our club and be like, we're only a couple of years away from a premiership, or we're going to be throwing things at the TV because we've drafted some random bloke we've never heard of, which is going to be a fun time. But before all that, let's analyze this. We're going to touch on a little bit on the mock draft. We've got some questions from all of the viewers this week, and the AFL made a very strange announcement to put the opening round everywhere but Melbourne, and nearly every team has a bye. So we'll dissect all of that, but Joel is back. So hello, Joel. Do you want to say hello to everybody? And people liked you last time, mate, so you're a podcast favourite now.
Thanks. I'll take that. Thanks for having me on again, Josh. Yeah, getting a lot closer to the draft now, and the AFL starting to release stuff like obviously the schedule and the early first round stuff, which I'm sure we'll touch on, which is interesting to see, to say the least, of what they're doing. So
yeah, that is true. Did you see North Melbourne's social media marketing team looks like they've been working overtime doing the AFL 2004 AFL Live 2004 intro or whatever it was.
Great time that game.
That was fantastic. I loved it. I love
the diving mark onto the chest. Yeah. Some great footage from that, actually.
Was it Dennis Comedy and Dermot Brereton, the commentators?
Yeah.
Like, who do you think will win today, Derm? It's like, I think North Melbourne. Well, I'll go the opposite and I'll say the Kangaroos. And I'm like, that is fantastic. That is just my PlayStation 2 childhood, which is very nostalgic and made me feel like I was about 12 again.
Great memories, great times, that game. I had it on the PC, which is very old style.
So good. I loved it. All right, let's get into the only topic that's not the draft, and then we'll get into all of that. Opening round. So the AFL has dropped on us a bombshell. Opening round is only going to be 4 games, and they're going to play at the SCG, Heritage Bank Stadium, Giant Stadium, and the Gabba. No Victorian opening round games and only 4 games. So give me your thoughts on this.
I mean, the first year that Carlton isn't terrible, they decided to take away the opening game for them.
I thought that too. I was like, the Blues are finally relevant, and they've lost their opening game. I guess the Tigers probably aren't going to be crash hot this year, but
no, probably not.
Do we get all snobby as Victorians about, like? I mean, I know I'm from Tassie and everything, so maybe I can subside on this, but like. There's nothing. It's a Victorian game, and they're not putting any of the opening round in Victoria. Question 1: why? Why do you think the AFL has done this?
It's purely marketing. They want the northern states to get a bit more supporter base and to give them something to get excited about. I think you should always have the opening game. You've got to have something in Victoria to start off with. Like,
absolutely,
it's a travesty, to be honest. But as a blue blood Victorian, we get disappointed by these things. So
I know, and look, I am from Tassie, as everybody knows, and I'm all for other states getting games and things. But even for me, like, the AFL is Victoria at heart, right? And I'm assuming they're trying to compete with the NRL because the NRL starts the week before the AFL.
That could be.
I'm pretty sure. I thought we sort of took the NRL out the back, knocked him over the head with a 2x4, rolled him in a carpet and threw him off a bridge. Are they still around, are they?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the 3,000, 5,000 people they get every single game, final. Every single week. That's every single week they get like these.
They're passionate though, I guess.
They're very passionate fans. yes, the old NRL. I have no clue how that league runs, but they're doing some things. Like, they've had that board up in Vegas that they got really annoyed by. The AFL didn't do it apparently on SEN.
Well, I heard this today actually at the barbershop, was that someone said that the NRL is going to play some games over in Vegas, which I think is a really cool thing. But the AFL is doing like a Sydney round in that week so they can get, or Sydney and Brisbane. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but I heard someone be like, I've heard they're going to do a Sydney and Brisbane round or put on some really big games then for when the NRL's not there to get people to try and go to see the AFL in those states. But I don't know.
Makes sense.
It does make sense, but I'm all for growing the game across the entire country because we're the better game and we know that. But not round one. Like, that's wild.
Not opening rounds. That opening bounce at the G has always just been iconic. It's been such a big moment. The big crowd coming in, the big sound, the hope of the season starting again.
Big sound, yeah.
Yeah. Now it's going to be what is the actual opening game this year? Is it the one in Sydney?
Let me have a look here. Thursday night, 7th of March, Sydney, Melbourne. I mean, look, they have paired the teams up okay. It's like, I guess it's all finals rematches, really, except for Gold Coast and Richmond. That's the Saturday afternoon game. What is going on there? I understand the Damien Hardwick thing.
Yeah, Hardwick.
Come on. Who wants to watch the Gold Coast play?
Gold Coast.
On the Gold Coast too.
Coast. Oh, gosh. The Gold Coast fans don't want to be there half the time. So
no. They'll probably be at the Gabba the night before and won't be able to turn up. Anyway, look, it is what it is. We can't do anything about it, but just look, I understand it for what they're trying to do, but I think it's a little bit, I don't know, read the room and don't alienate your fans who are always there by taking round one. Like, I think they could do this exact thing, but do it in round two. I feel like it'd be a completely different thing.
Yeah, probably right on that one. I think we've got Giants round two up. That's our first game, isn't it? Giants up there.
Yes, I had these. I've got this here. So the round one for us, it's on a Saturday afternoon. So watch out, prime time. We're the prime time Roos this year. No Sunday 440s. You know what? What is happening here? I'm actually having a look here. We don't have a Sunday game until round 5. And that's not even the 440. So the first Sunday 440 game we've got is round 6 against the Hawks. Wow, we are prime time.
Yeah, they're putting us a lot more set days this to start the year, which I was pretty happy with. It's where we actually didn't have too bad a mix on the schedule. I saw there was a couple of Friday night games there. We've got Carlton at Marvel for the Good Friday game again, which is a really big bonus. Though Absolutely. I did get disappointed at the back end of the year having a lot more of the Bloodstone Arena games. Well, I don't like finishing the season over there. I prefer, obviously, a bit more in Melbourne, but Port Adelaide's over there.
I'm a Tassie boy, and I do not want to finish the season over in Tassie. I mean, let's see, what is our last game? So it's it's in Tassie. Okay, don't worry. So it's Hawthorn in Tassie on Sunday.
That's Launceston, that one. Is that the Launceston one or the Hobart?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 5 games in Tassie this year.
Yeah, well, get the coin for it while we can until the Tassie team comes in. And look, I grew up going to Tassie. Aurora Stadium back in the day, or what was it called? York Park back in the day. So, look, I've got a lot of memories from North v Hawthorn down in Tasmania, but most of them are buddy kicking 13 on a pouring night. So,
was that Scotty T that was on, or was that Tarrant? I think that was Tarrant.
You know what? It doesn't really matter who.
Doesn't really matter.
To be honest,
it was bad.
It might have been some Frito action, actually. To be honest with you,
we trucked everything at him that day. Actually,
what are the other memories I've got? The only other memory I've got there is Matt Campbell doing some magic up in the forward pocket, and years before that, Eddie Sainsbury going to work. So, look, clearly I've got some big. I got my jersey signed by Ben Spate as well. So.
That is a deep cut fan, that one.
Absolutely. I've still got it too. It was Ed Lower, Ben Spate, and Matt Campbell signed my jersey. So I could auction it off for a bit of coin.
Gives you good memories though, doesn't it?
Oh, God. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. All right. Let's get into some real stuff then. So we've had a rumored trade pop up in talks today. I'm just going to run that one through you. And then basically we'll go through a little bit of the mock draft we did last week and see if anything shifted about, then some questions, and then we'll be finished. So maybe not as quite as long as last time, but hey, people love the long episodes. What absolute psychopaths. Anyway, the proposed trade today that's popped up in rumors, I got this from the North Melbourne Shinboners page. So thank you for them to them for being giving us all the information. You know, this is where I see a lot of this stuff. So they say North Melbourne has interest in trading picks 17 and 18 for Sydney's pick 12. Give me your thoughts on that.
That was today brought up by on Gettable by the Sydney boss. He was talking
Sydney
about that
GM of list strategy and recruitment, Kinia Beatson. What a stupid name.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Sure, he's friendly though.
Oh, he could be. He seemed like a nice guy, I think. But it's an interesting one. To be honest, I wouldn't do the trade until late and until I knew who was available at that point. Looking at the draft, there's a couple of players around that we would hope might slip down there. There's a Darcy Wilson. He's actually a North supporter. He's a bit more of a midfielder again, which is not overly what we need, but he's probably that slight class above. There's an extremely, extremely thin chance that O'Sullivan, who's a key position tall defender, he was the captain of the Murray Bushrangers, and he was also the captain of the Allies, I believe. There's an extremely slight chance he could land there, but it's looking like Essendon's getting very heavily connected to him.
Yeah.
And the other one that might slip there would be a Leake. He's a utility. He's played out of Tassie as well. There's a slight chance a few clubs above could reach on him, but him to get that low would be a bit surprising. So I'd probably, in North's position, wait to see what is available at that point before I start ponying up that trade. Because 17, 18, we can still go for a bit more depth and a bit more of those key position plays that we are desperately craving. The other one that you might move up for potentially is Will Green, but Sydney's got a heavy interest in him at that pick. So that's the other one. That's the interesting one. But
Will
I
Green's
would
the
probably,
ruckman, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He is. 204 centimeters, big fella, Victorian, played for Northern Knights. He's the other one that you might go to there but Sydney's probably the one who would take him with that pick if he's available. So
do you think it's a bit early to draft an Ollie Murphy there?
You could go Ollie Murphy there. You could. Ollie Murphy, though, has slipped a little bit because on his combine, he ran a really slow 20 meters. So the 20-meter sprint, obviously, they like for key position defenders in way of, obviously, for leading up forwards. It just means he would have to, as a defender, be a lot more structure driven. So he was only that. He was he played really well in all the competitions. He's still one of the highest ranked key position defenders, but that sort of has potentially let him slip down to our picks quite comfortably, a bit more comfortably than I thought. So that would be good. I think there's also that other one, Lawson, I think, was the other one that they're looking at the same now. He's been getting a bit more word up from us, but it's going to be between those two guys. My gut feel is for us. But at that pick, you could easily, I think you'll get Murphy at that pick comfortably, because Essendon will probably go O'Sullivan. And if O'Sullivan slipped that far, no one's taking O'Sullivan behind Murphy.
Yeah. Okay. Would you do it then? Yes or no? Just as a final?
I would wait to see. I would wait to the last second. I would wait to see if one of the players I want is there.
Yeah.
You would wait to see, because if you get to that pick and then, your best available is a player that you could have at 15, there's no value in it for you, and you can get a couple more options. But that's what it's going to come down to. But I would probably say I wouldn't, at the moment, I'd say I wouldn't do it because I don't think the players that I would want for us would be available there.
For sure. Okay, then. Looking back at our mock draft last week, has there been much movement in positions that maybe affect North Melbourne? And there's always players dropping, rising up the ladder and all that sort of stuff. But has there been much movement? If we were to run through our mock draft here really quickly, we did pick 2, we said McKercher, pick 3, Dersma. 15, we'll take, hopefully get someone like an Ollie Murphy. Then we had Collard and Green after that, who Collard was the small forward and Green the ruckman. Do you think much has changed on that front? Because that was sort of a mixture of what we think they'll do, but also what we would like them to do. But especially the Dersma pick, we did say maybe we'd take Curtin instead of Dersma. Has much changed on North's draft board there?
I think for 15, 17, 18, we're still looking at very similar names to that we have been. There's been a bit more of a link to Hardiman, he's 190 centimetres. He's a defender out of Swan District in Perth. I really like him a lot. I think we're getting a bit more link to him. Murphy is sliding a little bit, but I think we could get him. I think we're more likely to get him with our picks, though we don't have that same link to him as we do to this guy, Will Dawson. But Dawson's just got a bit more utilities in speed and vertical jump. we've also, I think the linked players are still the same. There's another player that I'd like to mention, which is Taylor Goad. He's a South Australian South Australian ruckman. He's 206 centimeters, 97 kilos.
Geez, they're breeding them big these days, aren't they? Like all the ruckmen we've talked about, it's like all of them are like well over 200 centimeters. And back in the day, you know, Aaron Sandilands was seen as a giant. And I feel like give it 2, 3, 4 years and we're just going to see giants all over the place.
Well, the three rucks that were sort of looked at, there's Mitch Edwards, obviously. There's a few things around him, obviously. Will Green and Goad, they're all tall. And I mean, Goad is 97 kilos already, which is a pretty decent size weight for, I mean, he's 206 centimeters, but 97 kg is very big.
For a teenager.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a lot. He's actually very fast, very good in the air, very strong in the air. He's got a lot of upside because he moves very well. He just needs to work on endurance, and his footy IQ is not the best at the moment. But his ceiling is projects very, very high. We're getting a bit more linked to him lately. I think if Will Green would go to Sydney, my gut feel is that North will probably look at Goad with one of our 17, 18s.
Okay.
So I think we're after a ruckman.
Yeah, well, I would really hope so. If without going on a rant,
on the Terry trade.
No, we're not bringing this up again. I want to back my boy Tristan Xerri. Okay, I don't have heaps of faith, but I did see that, and I wasn't very happy. Look, he's got a clean slate. I'm not going to forget what my experience with Tristan Xerri has been. I'm giving him a chance. Like every player gets a chance at the start of every season, but he's going to have to show something early. I do want another ruckman though so badly. So this, what was the guy's name again? Sorry, you said the new Taylor Goad. Around 17, 18 for Goad. Originally, when we put Green in our original mock draft, do you think he's risen up the board maybe to the Swans at 12 or something like that now?
Yet again, I think it's who's available at that point. Sydney has interest in him, definitely. But like if, for example, Leake's available, I think they would go him over a Green. But if Leake's available, 17, 18, I would trade for Leake. So you would sort of have these would be the kind of conversations that the clubs would be having on the night, I guess. But Leake could go anywhere as high as the Giants pick, to be honest. That's the other one, which is at 7, I think it is.
Give me a quick rundown on Leake again.
Utility. He is played across the halfback. He's played across the half forward. He's very athletic, good decision maker, strong marking, good skills. He played for Tassie, he played for Allies. Aerial's his strength as well. I should obviously go with. Needs to work on his endurance still, his consistency, strength. When you watch him, very strong mark, 187 centimeters and 77 kilos. Good disposer of the ball. Pretty decent in contests. He's been likened a lot to. He's that really classical utility. Probably plays both ends of the grounds. People are trying to find a five or trying to find that kind of player that moves both sides really well.
Okay. And you think, so if he's available at 12, you think the Swans might take him and then someone like a Green might drop down. If that's not the case, Green might go, if say he gets taken, Green might go at 12 to the Swans and then we could hope to slide in another ruckman there. Yeah,
and because you'll have Goad will be available at our picks. So it really does depend what we're thinking Sydney does at that pick. So 17, 18 is an interesting trade up. But as I said, like at that, I wouldn't want to trade up to just get Green. I think Goad projects well still. Like he's still got a lot of upside, a high ceiling. I prefer Green, but if you could get Goad plus, another key position forward or a key position defender, or a small forward plus one of those, you're making up that difference to me.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, these are the questions that they ask on the night: is these two players worth this one player?
Okay.
And that'll be the interesting ones going into the draft, I think.
Yeah. Any change of heart for any of these guys, like the McKercher, Dersma, Murphy, Collard, Green, the original sort of picks, other than Goad maybe as a hypothetical instead of Green, but you're still pretty happy with McKercher. I know we said Curtin for for Dersma, but it does the Dersma links sort of keep going on and on and on.
Yeah.
Murphy and all those sort of guys. Nothing really other than that has changed on North's draft board, do you reckon?
No, I mean, like at the moment, I actually, as I said, I'm getting stronger and stronger senses that Dersma's moving above McKercher on our board. So I think Dersma's, as I said, I'd be surprised now if we don't call Dersma at 3. I think we call Dersma ahead of McKercher. And I think
Do you think
McKercher's the one
so?
that would
Wow.
be. Yeah, I think they've moved him ahead now. That's
Okay.
just all the information coming out that I've seen, or everyone that's talked about it and anything club related, they are really liking Dersma a lot.
Okay. Well, we do have a few questions about Dersma coming up. So we'll leave the in-depth Dersma chat for then, because just talking before we started this podcast, I can hear how excited you are about diving into some Dersma chat. So why don't we just jump straight into some questions from all the fans, and then there'll be a lot of Dersma chat in there, and then you can gush to us about Zane.
Yep, I'll take that.
Thank you to everyone who has written into the podcast as well. Just so everyone can remember, Further North Podcast on Facebook, Further North Pod on Instagram, and on X/Twitter. So I've got all 3 now. I'm trying to be as active as possible. Twitter still is a little bit hard for me, but I'm a boomer, so you got to let me go. Thank you to everyone who's written in. I haven't been able to get all of them because there are a lot of people who now follow this thing, and I love everyone's contribution. I've tried to get as many as I can, but I love and appreciate all your comments. So please always throw your opinions out there. Let's not start with, we can start with a little bit of Dersma, but this is a question. So these are all going to be thrown at you, Joel. Hopefully you're ready. This is the first time you've been put on the hot seat. So how are you feeling about getting some questions thrown at you? Are you nervous?
Nah, super excited. Love the draft. So I love these guys. So it's going to be really interesting to see
I can tell you love the draft. All right. This one is on Instagram from Rematch Athletic. And Rematch Athletic says, is McKercher a lock, or could we take Dersma and Curtin?
I think if we're going to drop one of them, I've got the feeling now it's going to be McKercher. I think that's still very unlikely. I think Dersma and McKercher, who we locked into, we did do an interview allegedly today with Curtin again, but Hawthorn's also been interviewing him as well, so he'll probably get taken just behind us, I think. My gut feel is we're pretty locked into Dersma and McKercher now.
Okay.
And if we were going to drop one, my gut feel is we're more likely to go Dersma and Curtin than we would be McKercher and Curtin.
Interesting, because it's so crazy to me how quickly all of it changed. Yeah, it goes so quick, doesn't it? Because one week McKercher was basically like meant to be the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like the last 2 weeks it's been McKercher, and now it's sort of slightly drifting Dersma's way. But then as we've got some Dersma questions coming up, like is it the right fit for us and all that sort of stuff? So it's wild how fast this whole draft moves. But hey, we're here for it. This is why we're here talking about it.
The thing I'd still raise though with McKercher is he would still be the next on West Coast board by all accounts. And I mean, McKercher is an incredible player. Like he's got such huge upside. I think I really rate him extremely highly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get on to the next question. So there's a few questions all lumped in together here. So I'm going to ask you a few. They all are sort of on a similar line, but I wanted to be able to read out everyone's thoughts. So this one is from Jason Campbell on Twitter. Can we get anyone to bite for our picks 15, 17, and 18 in moving up and gaining another top 10 pick, or is that dream dead and buried? This one, do you see anyone biting on 15, 17, and 18?
No, I think the Cats were a real option, but they're getting a bit more locked into Caddy by all accounts. I was just chatting with my mate Mick before about this actually, and he was saying about, because we're looking very closely at the Cats one and the Giants one with another one. The Giants are apparently getting linked now to trading with Adelaide, who would give them 10 and 20, I believe it is, for pick 7, which is an interesting one. I think Adelaide, or pick 8, I think it was. So that's a potential trade on the night. North, 15, 17, 18, I don't see us. The recent one is Sydney, obviously. And I don't see us being able to bundle up to move into that. That top 6 are locked essentially. I don't see many of them moving at all because they're very highly rated. The next few, there's slight chance of movement if there was a really big offer, but I think everyone's pretty locked into that. So I think Sydney's the first reasonable one for us. And I think, I don't think 15, 17, 18, even if we bundled it, I don't think we're getting up to where like the Cats were the obvious one because they had sort of mentioned they would. And the Giants was the other option, but it looks like Adelaide will probably give them a decent offer where they can take the players they want still.
Okay. To Braden George's Rising Star years question. I guess we've already sort of covered that. So who do you see us picking at 15, 17, 18? I guess we're hoping for Murphy, Collard, and Green was on our draft board last week. Obviously, with a couple of positions maybe to be shuffled with the new ruckman, and it depends on who goes up and down there. But I guess we've already covered that, so we won't have to worry about that one too much. But thank you for the question.
I'll just say as well there is a bit of a suite of players in that area, like because now, it is very interesting how quickly it changes. As I said, like Murphy and this guy Will Dawson's coming as a bit of a bolter for us. It would be a real reach for us to take him. But he's a real option there as a key position defender. And Will Green, Taylor Goads really come in, but Green, if he goes earlier, and Hardiman, we've been really starting to get heavy links to, but I think he probably goes to the Saints before us. But he's a halfback running guy. Strong defender, probably good one-on-one guy, which I wouldn't mind getting. But if we got him, it would have to be at 15 is my gut feel.
Okay. There's so much around that sort of mark then, isn't there? Because, there's obviously a couple of ruckmen and a few utilities and whatnot sort of roaming around that area. I mean, that sort of area, it seems to me like you can sort of pick up decent players in whatever position you might need. And it was put really well by you last week of, if you're up in the top 5 or 6 around there anyway, you draft on talent. And when it drops down to the teens and in the 20s, you probably draft on position a little bit more. And that's why, and to Braden George's question here, not the actual Braden George, 15, 17, 18 is such a rogue time to draft because there are still massive upsides and potentials on guys at this sort of level, but there's so many of them sort of all bundled at the same sort of talent level. It makes it pretty rogue down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also going to be there'll be a few, we've got the capacity there to reach on a few people. So that's where you might see a Will Dawson get reached for, where you're looking at assets that you really like about him. You can get in before the others. You could potentially trade back, but I don't see us doing that at that stage. But you could trade back and still keep that and potentially get some more assets in the future. So pick 17, 18 if that happened. Don't be surprised if we traded back a bit there. But you're starting to look for specific assets and those you can get a lot of good talent comes out in those 20 to 30s because you're looking at specific talent, specific skill set. And you're seeing one particular skill that you really love and you can build around that with that player. So you're a bit more speculative, but you can build into that player a lot more. Where the player is a bit higher up between that 10 and 20 for my mind, often they've got their skill sets, which that they've got, and you're building into those opposed to a bit more imaginative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do really like that we've got 3 picks around that area as well, just to be, because I do think we do need to draft on position sort of specific for our team needs, and having a lot of picks around that area almost forces us to draft on position instead of just on talent. Of course, they all have talent, but, I'm glad we've got, a couple of picks right at the top to make sure that we do get that high potential in whatever position it is. But we do have those 3 picks further down the board that sort of separate those 2 sections of the draft that mean we can get some high potential players, but focus more on the position. So I do like how our draft is sort of split at the moment, And
I just wanted to say at the same time with the picks 15, the reason I would say 20 is by the time all the bids happen, pick 15 is going to probably be pick 20 on the actual night.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
To clarify why I'm saying that to Steve.
The guys who are father, son, or academy, they're not in the draft board though. So I guess it does drop correct, down and the number is lower, but it doesn't mean we're taking anyone we didn't have on the board anyway. So
1,000%, yeah.
So now we're going to jump into some questions about pick 1 and some trades. This is always a dark rabbit hole to go down, but hey, we're here for it.
Yes, it is.
Ryan Hawkins on Twitter, whose handle is pretty good, is at Ward is the Law, which is fantastic. He says, what does Joel think about the supposed rumors of us giving up pick 2, 15, 18, and future first for Reed and pick 23? And there's one more question about pick number 1 that I've put in here, so we'll lump them to the two together. Bryden_Isles on Instagram. What's your final trade offer to get pick 1, if there even is one? So what is your final offer for it? And would it be pick 2, 15, 18, and a future first round pick for Harley Reid and pick 23?
I have seen that rumor flying around. I didn't take too much into it because I think it's well overs. The future first for us is most likely top 5. It's very midfield heavy next year. That's pretty well reported at the moment. I wouldn't be doing that trade. I think you're giving up too many assets at that point. What I think North's final offer would be is probably 2, 5, or maybe 3, 15, 18. That being said, 2, 3, it wouldn't make a huge difference because both clubs will know what they want from those picks. It sounds it's a bit more on the books than it is on what it actually means to the clubs. That's probably what I would offer. There is a slight part of me that wants to go pick 2 and a future first, and maybe trading 18 and 21. So they would end up with we would end up with pick 1. They would end up with this draft 2 and what's called 18.
18.
And 18, and we would end up with their 21, and they would have our first round next year, which is probably top 5. There's a slight part of me that would love that, because the only reason I say that, Reed, I rate exceptionally highly. Like, I love all the players in this area, but Reed, there's something very special about him as a player, and he'll do a couple of things for us. If we had him and Dersma together, you've got 2 very strong high half marking half forwards that can switch and hopefully spend time through the middle and move back. And there's also the marketing aspect of it for the club.
I agree with that massively with Harley Reid.
Yeah, he'll bring automatic eyes to the club. Like, so many people I've talked with will just go in like, oh, I'll go level 2 if we get Reid. Like, it'll be, they just want, because everyone knows about him. They've heard about him for a few years. There's that automatic buy-in. They'll print him on all the merch cards and all that. There's that aspect, which is a non-tangible, but how much do you give up for that is the question. What I think our final offer would be that the 3, 15, 18. I wouldn't hate it if we gave away our future first, which is a lot to give, but I wouldn't hate that idea.
Do you think it has to be 4 first round picks to be getting that though? Like, I feel like to the Eagles, giving them 2, 18 and our future first should be plenty to get that over the line personally. But clearly they don't see it that way because they're wanting more than that. But at the end of the day, if we gave them 2, 18 and our future first, I would do that for Harley Reid. That would be my final offer personally.
I wouldn't. I said it's one that they would be winning the deal, as in, like, they'll be getting a future 5, like most likely a top 5. I think best case scenario next year. My gut feel is we finish best case scenario, we end up with 8 wins, which would be over doubling our wins. But I think there's good reason to think that we could get there. But which would probably give us around pick 5 or 6. So they would have pick 2, pick 6, and pick 15 odd, or pick 18 odd, sorry. And we would have, the pick 1 this year. And it's a massive, massive price to pay. But there's more elements to, like, he's an incredible talent, but there's also aspects of marketing, which I completely understand. And it's also the first year of the Alan Aylett medal for the number 1 pick, which is happening. So obviously getting the first number 1 pick with that medal would also be something special for the North club.
Yeah, true. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's something you could really get around. it would be overs, and I could understand why people would hate that. I think if you're going to do it for anyone and you're going to do it any year, this is the year.
This is the year, yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, I completely understand the marketing perspective of it as well. Like a player like Dacos has just taken the league by storm, and is he a great player? Of course, but he's not like I'm a barber, mate. People come in and ask for Nick Dacos's haircut all the time.
Yeah.
They're just like Dustin Martin did years ago for Richmond. Dacos is going to bring even more. Every kid's going to want to support the Pies because they know Dacos. If you're 7 years old, you know Nick Dacos. You knew Dustin Martin a few years ago. Everyone's going to know Harley Reid. So I think paying overs is normal because we're the ones that want that pick. They don't need to give that pick for us. And of course, we're going to do it with a strong draft hand. You know, we could maybe give up 2 picks this year for one, and then we still take 4 picks in the top 50 or 16 or 17, sorry.
Yeah.
And we give up next year's, but we've kind of got the talent. I feel like next year we'd probably want to getting some experience or, you know, developing our own players. Think of the crop of young guys we've got. So, look, it's all hypothetical, but I think, personally, my final offer, which I think is pretty fair, is 2-18 and next year's first.
Yeah, and it's one, as they're like, on numbers, you lose out on that, but there's a real opportunity for something really special there. Yeah. And, you know, it's at some stage you take a big risk. I think this is the situation where you take a big risk. Like, if we had number 1 pick, there'd be 0 chances of us moving it. Like when we had that short period for that 1 week where we had the number 1 pick, there was 0 chance of, like, as soon as everyone's like, oh, North's taking Reid, there is wiggle room here and there is capacity to get him to stay in Melbourne. And I think if he delivers or not even if he delivers, like the market in the first year, like membership sales will soar with him on our cards.
Absolutely.
And what he can deliver on the field if we ended up with him and Dersma, like
it's bums on seats, isn't it?
Him, Dersma, Taron Thomas, and Zerha off those half forward flanks. Paul Curtis, those guys, like that rotation through the middle / forward half would be scary good.
Scary
good.
Oh, like you're selling me a dream, mate. Come on. You're selling me a dream. Give him all our picks. I want him now.
Take it.
Take it. Just take everything. Okay.
Shut up and take my picks.
Absolutely. All right. Harley John Harbour on Facebook says, will we recruit a mature 25 plus with one of our later picks? And if so, who? So I guess he's asking, with one of the later picks in the draft, is there anyone who's maybe slightly more mature that you'd be looking at, or you think we stick with 18-year-olds?
There's this small forward from Werribee, Manor, which we've been linked to a little bit. I think that's more likely a rookie draft. We've got a bit more of a connection with them now since we've had Barlow, isn't it? The coach from Werribee come across to us. There's a bit more of a link of potentially getting someone like him across.
How old was he?
I think he was mid-20s. I can't remember his exact age, but he had an exceptional final series and he's an exceptional player. He had behavioural issues. I think he was Port Adelaide listed for a while, but obviously he's well known and he's matured a bit as he's gotten older. Other clubs will probably overlook him. There's a slight few people that are connected to him as well. But I think we'd be more likely to take him in the rookie. There's a few players that could slip a bit later. That's probably something to touch on as well, is how many will take this draft. We've got 5 to 6 spots. I think we're been rumored to take to 5 to 6 picks at the moment. So,
well, I think Sonia came out and made a statement and said we expect to take 5 picks in this draft. So, do we have 6 spots to fill? So maybe they're leaving 1 spot open for a rookie or something like that.
We've got a couple of rookie return, picks.
Maybe.
Yeah. There's always room for a more Turner. Oh God. Oh, no. I think her coming out and saying that I think was a bit like people have sort of misread what he said. I think she was saying because we have the 5 first round picks and she's very excited about that, which is very good. And she said, I think what was the comment? Something about bring us another Sheasel and Wardlaw.
Yes, do what we did last year.
Yeah. So like, I mean, we're not trading out of 2 or 3. There was originally a couple of rumours that we might move when we were looking at a bit deeper on taking Dersma, of moving him potentially for 6 and 11 with Melbourne. I think that's dead in the water now. I think we're very happy with who we've got at those picks. But Yeah, I think 2-3 will end up with, or 1 and 3 will end up with. And then I think 15, 17, 18 are up for movement depending on what we do.
Okay. All right. James Duke says, is there a possibility that we trade pick 3 to Melbourne for their 2 first rounders and get Caddy?
No. Not anymore. Not anymore. There was, as I said, like that was the rumor. There was 6 and 11 that they've got. There was strong rumors of that because potentially we could have moved back and taken Curtin at Melbourne's pick. And then 11, James Leake would likely be available. Caddy's probably very heavily linked to Geelong now, so he's going before there. If you've got that Melbourne pick, you're probably looking at similar ones to the Sydney one that I was talking about. You'd be hoping that Leake slides or maybe a Wilson slides a little bit to there, but I don't think that they'll necessarily be available there.
Okay. Bailey Tyson, also on Facebook, says, would you do the rumoured deal for picks 3 and 17 for Melbourne's 6 and 11? Similar question before. I personally would, and grab Curtin at 6, not sold on Dersma.
Curtin's probably going to Hawthorn now, is my gut feel. That's the call I would make now.
Don't Hawthorn have a father-son key defender as well?
Will McCabe is coming in. We'll probably bid on him at 15 at the moment, the way it's looking.
Do you think they'd take 2 key defenders?
Curtin is versatile and slightly different style, and he's probably too good. Like, there's a chance he could slide, and that would be the only reason, would be because they've got McCabe later. You just couldn't
leave that talent on the table, though.
That's the big thing. He's 197 centimetres tall. He's played time in the middle. He's an elite kick of the ball. He's got we should just draft him and make him a ruckman. And it's like,
197 centimeters. He's a teenager. He's going to get to 200 centimeters, you'd think. Chuck him in the ruck. And then when that ball hits the ground, we got 4 midfielders in there. Come on, Clarko. Get with it, mate.
Clarko has a very good history of drafting surprises. Like the famous one, obviously, was the Delidio draft, where Delidio went number 1 and Hawthorn by all money was going Tambling at 2, and then 3 was going to be Griffin, and then it was going to be who takes Roughhead and who takes Franklin. But knowing what he wanted and knowing that the Doggies would probably go Roughhead, he picked Roughhead, which then obviously started to make all the...
Through a spanner.
The Doggies went, I think that was when they went Ryan Griffin and then 4 was Tambling, which Richmond was ecstatic to get at the time, and then 5 went Franklin. So Roughhead Franklin chucked a big spanner. It was a big surprise to everyone, but it was a great draft move.
Installed this time. Wow. Oh my God.
There's always room for these things to happen.
Yeah, I know. I hope it's I hope it's spicy for the content, but I hope it's not, because I'll be upset and angry and not know what's going on. But Clarko's at the wheel, so everything's fine.
Trust the Clarko.
All right. Let's touch on Dersma then, because I think we've got a few more questions. No, you know what? Let's touch on Dersma now. I'm going to read out a few questions about Dersma here. Obviously, Bailey said at the end he's not sold on Dersma. I'll just read you a couple more out here and let's have some Dersma chat. So Noah Wiggins says, not a question, but I feel as though people get stuck on the medium forward status of Dersma and lump him in with everyone else. This kid is beyond special and would be a walk-up start in almost any team, let alone North. People seem to forget that he is only 2 to 3 centimeters shorter than Wayne Carey, and he's still growing. And the last question to do with Dersma here is Michael Daly on Twitter/X. Can Dersma play as a centre half forward? So there's a few questions in there. Obviously, Bailey's not sold on Dersma. Noah's saying, let's not put him in the medium forward bracket. He's only 2 to 3 centimeters shorter than Carey. And Michael Daly is saying, can he play as a centre half forward? So give us your opinion on all of that, and sell everybody who's listening to this podcast on Dersma and why is he the pick we need to take?
Dersma, I have spent a lot of time watching recently because it's one that when I was first watching, he gets a lot of goals. His back half of the year was absolutely incredible. And I didn't quite see it at the start. The more and more I've watched, and I've spent a lot of time watching, as I said, particularly these last few weeks, he is exceptionally clean with his hands. When he goes through packs, he'll pick up the ball one grab and he'll move through. He makes the right decisions extremely often. He knows how to hit the scoreboard. He, as I said, like his back end, he was kicking over 3 goals a game at the back end of the year, which is not something that happens that often. He's 189 centimeters. I do centre half forwards too big for him, but a high half forward / what they'll want him to do eventually is have more midfield minutes. The player comp that, as I said, one of my good mates, Mick, he was saying, and I actually really agree with this, it's an old one, was James Hird. James Hird, when he first came in, tall, extremely strong overhead, very strong mark, and spent a little bit of time in the middle and eventually developed more and more midfield time. There's a lot of traits and qualities that I see that are very similar to early Hird. Not saying that he becomes that player, but you can see those assets that are there for or to say he is an exceptional player. He's going to, I don't think he comes in immediately because I did see him at Casey. He didn't look out of place at Casey, but he didn't put on I think he ended up with a few lovely marks again. Like his hands are just so clean when he's marking. And I think he had a few nice lead up kicks as well that he hit. I think he ended up with 15 disposals, and considering, these guys also get chucked into these matches without being a big part of the game plan.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is also to take into note. I think he'll come in and play early for us, but not I don't think he'll be for the first 6-7 weeks. I think it'll take him a little while to get in, is my gut feel. But he is elite in what he does, and his upside is exceptionally high. If he develops a little bit more of an engine and a little bit more midfield craft at his size, and if the other thing that would be very exciting is, yes, he's the youngest end that you can be to get drafted. So he's where most of these guys have been 18 for a while. I think he's the shorter end of that. If he grew 4 centimeters over summer, or 4 centimeters in the next, 12 months, 18 months, which isn't out of the question. You could be potentially looking at that high centre half and that higher position. He's got a huge upside. Watch some of his highlight reels now. They're, as I said, Vic Country versus Vic Metro was the best performance of the tournament, in my opinion, in the champs. And what he did there was just, you see everything that he does in one game. It's extremely exciting to watch. He'll be a massive asset for our side. And if you can put him next to, Zerha on one side and with these other guys, the other thing to take note of, I guess, is our top goal scorer, Larky, got 70. Our next highest was Stevenson with 20 something. So we've got this we've got a lot of those forwards that we're happy with, but there's not enough kicking goals. And Dersma hits the scoreboard a lot.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest things to sell it for me as well, because, I was going to ask you a couple more questions here, and one of them was going to be, there's a lot of chat about this medium forward thing, just like the question said before. Taking a Dersma, does that worry you to displace someone like an Eddie Ford, a Paul Curtis, a Steve-O, a Zerha? I know Cooper Harvey hasn't got many minutes, but that's a Curtis Taylor being lower down the order for us. But mainly, I guess, talking about a Zerha, about a Curtis, about a Ford and a Stevenson, they're probably the ones that you'd want to be in and around the team. This guy, I would, and Brandon George, let's throw him in there as well. Does it worry you at all about the position, or you think this guy has the most potential and you just can't pass up on a guy like that? Because I completely agree with you about the goal scoring, with Stevenson being a second highest goal scorer, who I did think had a good year, and I think he'll get so much better once he's in a slightly better side. Can we trust Zerha? Can you trust Paul Curtis to have a more consistent season? Is Eddie Ford going to keep growing? To bring this whole statement I'm making all back around, does it worry you drafting Zane Dersma when we do have guys in those positions already, or you think he's the one that's going to be able to get us the goals and fill that void of that second goal scorer who can get 40 plus as well?
Yeah, I'm probably more of that opinion. And if the worst thing that happens is he is so talented that he gets one of those guys out of our team, that's not the worst outcome for our team. We've 100%. Improved our list. And there is a big gaping void in our forward line where we've got Larky with the 70, had a fantastic season, and there hasn't been anyone that's kicking that next bag. Obviously there was a lot of injuries for Zerha this year. Slevo
Common
was
as
out.
well.
Yeah, Comben got injured. CCJ didn't quite kick and deliver. I mean, Curtis, you're starting to see a bit more forward, just seeing more, but like what Dersma offers is also something that like I don't think we've got outside of Larky this and on his stable. We don't have those strong lead up markers that just hit like that are that elite going forward and taking those marks. Like that's when you watch Dersma's gameplay so often, his forward craft is brilliant. He knows to lead to the right places. He gets himself free and he takes marks. He can mark it at the highest point above his head, and he can get hit up on the lead so quickly because he's just so fast off that break and just knows where to leading patterns. He'll be a really good asset. And the other way that I tend to assess these things is if we let him pass, is he going to slide? Zero chance he gets past Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero chance. Hawthorn would take him within a heartbeat. Doggies would take him immediately, but there's zero chance of him get to the Dogs. And I said, in reality, there's zero chance of him getting to Hawthorn. He's not getting past us. And he offers something that is exceptional at 189, the way he marks, the way he can kick goals. I said, I've come full circle on this man. So come back to him. He's the shining future. And if we had, I was saying with him and Reid together, that would be him, Reid, Tarrant as those half forwards and Sheasel swapping and moving around.
Yeah.
We could have if you had those four together, that is extremely dangerous for
Throw a Braden George. I think Braden George, Paul Curtis is special. I think Paul Curtis has a massive ceiling. I know he was a little bit more inconsistent last year, but we've seen what he can do. And a Stevenson as well, and an Eddie Ford. I think they're all, I want them to get opportunities next year. As for like a Curtis Taylor or somebody like that, or a Cooper Harvey, I maybe don't see them getting spots next year in the team. But one of the things you said before was completely true where, we all love it. Like every North fan loves Eddie Ford so much, and I do as well. And I hope he gets so much opportunity next year. But if we have someone who's better than him and replaces him in the team, that's also not a bad thing. As much as we don't like seeing Eddie Ford not be in the senior side, the only reason he would be out is because there are great players taking his spot, and every other team has that. We can't just pick our 22 favorites and hope they all turn into stars. So I do agree with that.
Totally agree.
Yeah. The other question I was going to ask, last one on Dersma before we go to another question. Obviously, his brother is now at the Bombers. I've talked to a lot of people at the barbershop who don't rate his brother and think he's inconsistent.
He's not his brother.
I was going to say, compared to his brother, like what do you see that he had that Zane has over his brother?
Well, Zane's a much better mark. Like you see, it's Zane, Xavier, Yasmin, and Willem is also the younger one that's coming through the system. So they're XYZW.
They're going to be like the Selwoods soon.
Yeah. So, the thing that, like, his brother is a winger, goes up forward, and he obviously can take the marks and kick goals. He's not really as contested. I don't think when he marks, he's a chest mark. He doesn't mark it out in front with his hands extended. Doesn't have the same clean pickup. Like, Zane's, like, I'm not a huge fan of his brother as a player. Like, you can see what assets he's got, but he tends to be one way for me. He doesn't tackle hard, and he's a downhill skier, as I'd put it. Zane's a much stronger tackler, much better in contest, and much better mark, much cleaner hands. I mean, he's better, sadly for Zabe. He's better in every way. So
of course. I think that's the last point to sell some people. Everyone I've chatted to who questions Dersma, I think they're getting his brother on their mind, and they're not breaking out of that box. So I agree with you completely, but I just wanted you to be able to really sell it to the people, because I think that's where they get stuck.
Yeah, as I said, like, Xavier is a good player. Like, he kicks goals, and there was a stage when it was the Port Adelaide's future midfield was those three. What was it? It was what's his name? Butters and Dersma and the other guy. Can't remember his name now. He's very good though.
The Pal Pepper?
No. The other small, but they were the three young guys. They were all under 22, and they were.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So they're all coming through. Rosie, that's it. Sorry.
Yes.
They're all coming. Yeah, they're all coming through at the same time, and they're all the future. But then Dersma had a fair few injuries, got slowed down a little bit, and obviously with Essendon wanting to trade with Essendon, they like loyalty was a bit of a question mark, but the only reason Dersma left, was because Essendon, they needed to get the Essendon backman again. What's his name? Whatever his name was, Zerk Thatcher. That's it. But right. I mean, Zane is very something to get very excited about. He's got massive upside, and where he could be in the future, or where his ceiling is elite AFL.
Okay. Well, you've sold me, mate. And if that doesn't sell everyone else listening to this, I don't know what will. So if Zane Dersma comes in and he's the most loved North Melbourne player ever in existence, I think he can thank you and you alone.
I'll take that. Yeah,
I'll be the
Zane. I'll be the Zane cheer squad for
absolutely. Okay, let's go to some more questions. Enough Dersma chat. We've had so much Dersma chat. Okay. Amar16 on Instagram says, well, this is for me, actually. Can you do a draft day live stream? I'll reveal now my plan. Hopefully, a couple of the closer to a flag guys will be coming over to my place, and we're going to record a podcast while watching the draft. So that should be some fantastic content, because we're either going to be incredibly happy and you can all celebrate with us, or we're going to be incredibly angry, and that's going to be funny for everybody to listen to. So I was thinking about doing a live stream. Didn't really come to. Maybe next year, maybe that once I get that stuff up and running, which I would like to, maybe I can watch some games on a live stream or something like that. But not this year, but we are going to record a podcast while watching it live. So hopefully that can suffice. Sorry if I'm not good enough, guys. Another question. Kevin_Patrick_Tommen on Instagram. Thoughts on McKercher and Dersma not following a footy team? Seems bad vibes. Now, I haven't heard this before. Did they say that they don't follow a team in particular in an interview they did?
I didn't really take much into that. But that being said, a lot of the players don't really like to admit too much to following different teams.
I feel like they just say that because they don't care or they don't mind where they go, and they don't want to make that a thing.
I think there was one that I heard with Nate Caddy in an interview, and he was talking about how he has a soft spot for North because he spent a bit of time at the club apparently at one stage. But he follows players more than he follows teams. So I think once you're playing at this level and you're often interacting with them at higher levels, you would get to know all the players of the different clubs that you're at. I think Riley Sanders spent a lot of time at Collingwood in one of the pre-season parts, so we knew a few of the Collingwood players and had a bit of a soft spot for them.
Yep.
But doesn't necessarily grow up following them. But once you get to know people as individuals, I guess, and that as players, you are, it's a bit more of a business job, a bit more of a business at that point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be taking it I wouldn't be worrying about the bad vibes there at all. Wouldn't you be more worried that if we drafted someone whose favorite team was like Essendon and they hated North Melbourne growing up? What if I was a really good football player? I hated Adelaide growing up. They were my least favorite team after the Wayne Carey thing and all that sort of stuff. And I just hated them. I don't know why, I just did. But if I was a really talented footballer and got drafted there, would I want everyone to hate me because of that? Probably not. The other example I do have is Aaron Mullet. I cut his hair at the barbershop sometimes, and he's a great guy. I love him when he comes in. And I think he said he grew up following Collingwood and came to North Melbourne, obviously went to Carlton for a year. And, clearly you can grow up supporting whoever. He supports North Melbourne now is basically my point. He grew up following Collingwood his whole life, played for North. And then once you play for a club, you are completely indebted to that club for a long time if you have the memories there, or they give you the chance or whatnot. So I wouldn't be too stressed about if people support teams, don't support teams. Let's not read into too much voodoo, Yeah. But I did tell Aaron Mullet that I'm going to make my all-time North Melbourne 22, and he's a guaranteed halfback starter. David King, sorry, mate. Jess Sinclair, out you go. Aaron Mullet's in the building, so bit biased.
I did like Aaron Mullet. I did like him a lot, actually, Fishy. He was very, very good.
Yeah, I agree. I liked him, but look, he's only 31 now. We could give him a contract.
I think Collingwood offered a second-round pick for him, actually, that one before, and we passed it.
Absolutely. First round or nothing for the Mullet.
For the Fishy.
Absolutely. Brock._Childs on Instagram. Should we trade up to Geelong's pick and take O'Sullivan?
They won't trade it now, I don't think. But if we could, I would 1,000% do that.
Really quickly, what would you give up for? Was it pick 9 they've got?
They've got pick 8.
8. What would you give up for it?
It's hard to know because I don't think they'll take anything for it now. I think they're pretty locked into getting Caddy. But if you would, 15, 17, I'd easily give up. I probably wouldn't give up 15, 17, 18, but 15, 17, you would offer. Cats would say no. I'm guessing Adelaide would be in a better position to offer a better one than us probably, but it sounds like they're going up to Giants pick, which is ahead of that. So
fair enough. And we have another question from Brock. Won't Ollie Murphy be gone by pick 15? Don't see any other key defensive options. We have talked about a few more, but do you want to just say where you think he'll roughly go and then just give us a couple of options for Brock there?
I think he's starting to slide a lot since the combine. It's one of the cases where the combine's done him a little bit dirty. He didn't have a good vertical jump, and his 20-meter sprint is slow, which is when you're a key position defender, you obviously want to stop the lead up, which is going to be a concern for him long term. I think he probably slides down to us now. I think that's becoming a bit more likely. There's a slight chance Saints take him. I don't think Sydney does. So I think Saints would be the one that might take him. He's a former Saints supporter. Or not a former, he's a Saints supporter currently.
For now, mate. Wait till he gets in those rose colours.
Will Dawson's the obvious other link at the moment. He's more athletic, similar size, doesn't seem to have the runs on the board that he does though. Took a while to settle in a position. He played a bit forward, but it's obviously moved back a bit more, and that's probably where he'll finish up.
Okay. Another question from Bryden Isles. Which North legends are you using to welcome this year's crop on draft night?
Great question. Who's going to present the jumpers and who? I mean, there's a part of me that will burst with happiness if I saw, who would it be? Adam Simpson for West Coast coach handing number 7 North Melbourne jumper to
fantastic.
Harley Reid one
traded for number 1.
That would give me a lot of joy. That would bring me joy.
Brad Scott comes out and a former coach and gives someone his number.
I mean, you could go the easiest ones of Zeeble and Cunnington for 7 and 10 for the first 2 picks, but bit too obvious. Anthony Stevens could give 10 to someone would be awesome.
That is true. You could get Ryan Clark back from the Swans. He could hand one out. Get Goldstein to come and do it. He hasn't played for Essendon yet. Mackay.
Gosh.
Who would I actually want to see? Like, I don't know. You know who I'd love to see? Shannon Grant. Bring Shannon Grant out. I know it kind of has to be the numbers of the old players. Who really cares? It's just as a legend to come back. I love Shannon Grant, and I would love to see him come out and do it. I know Corey McKernan still just froths North Melbourne, so it'd be cool to see him do it. But hey, why don't we get Wayne Carey back and he can present a jumper with Glenn Archer and Steve-O on the stage as well.
Who's 18 at the moment for us, actually?
Ooh. But, great question. Was it?
I remembered Atley was last one that I remember.
Yeah, Atley instantly came to my mind.
I think I'm going to feel dirty not knowing this.
I'm gonna look it up now. I'm gonna get you to answer this next question, and while you're answering it, I'm gonna look up the number. The next question is McKercher a lock, or could we take Dersma and Curtin? I guess we have already sort of done this question, so
it's a good question, but McKercher's probably McKercher for me is more is a higher end locked talent. Curtin, we have interviewed Curtin again though. There is a if anyone's going to pull funny buggers on it, it'll be Clarko on this one. To be honest, I think that's one move that if it's Dersma will be locked in. I'm thinking now, and I think McKercher's the movable one.
Oh no, Marnie's gonna hate me.
Oh, it's Greenwood.
Oh, it's Hugh Greenwood. Oh no,
maybe he can hand the jumper over to someone.
Marnie, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. And me and Marnie caught up on the weekend to discuss some future pod things. And she, of course, slipped in some Hugh Greenwood and Jasper Pittard chat. And Man, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, she's going to absolutely roast me. All right. Sorry, Marnie.
Oh, but sorry, Hugh.
Oh, Hugh's fine. Hugh's chill. Marnie's more passionate about Hugh than Hugh is about Hugh. So, oh dear. Okay. Well, look, if I don't do a podcast next week, guys, and I have gone without a trace, Marnie's had an absolute spray at me. Oh,
good reason.
God. I'm so sorry, Marnie. All right. Last few questions here. David Little on Facebook. And here's a good question actually about the old curveball that Clarko likes to throw. David says, is there a potential curveball in the makings in regards to picks/players? Seems like all reporting is McKercher and Dersma with 2 and 3. We will be surprised as we are a couple of years ago when will we be surprised? So will we be surprised as we were a couple of years ago when the expectation was McDonald, then we took Phillips?
Good question. Very good question. If there is room to move there, I think Curtin's the only one that's really in our calculations. There is always going to be connections to Sanders, but Sanders for mine, as I said last one, was he's exactly what we've got, and I don't see him having a massive ceiling.
It doesn't feel like he's really in that ballpark at all, does it?
No, it doesn't. And he's there's nothing against his gameplay. He's done nothing but proven that he is. And the other one is Watson. I think North does like Watson a lot, but at that pick, you'll be reaching significantly. I think you'll be reaching significantly at that point. So there is always the room for the curveball. Curtin would be the interesting one. As a lot of the draft pundits are saying at the moment, the Curtin pick, whoever picks Curtin is shaping the draft. He could go to North. That's not out of the realms. I think that's a possibility. He could go to Hawthorn. They've started to do some real due diligence. He'll get past, if he was there, he'll get past Dogs because they've got way too many tools. They've just got too much talent in tools. And then Melbourne would be next, and there's slight chance he could get past them. But that's not talent-based again. It's a very interesting position to be in the draft for him. But he's going to be the draft shaper in that top end.
Yeah, that would be wild. And I guess the biggest domino of all, which it does seem like it won't happen at all, is what if West Coast did really want the guy from Western Australia still? That hasn't been talked about for a long time, and I think it's very, very unlikely. But once again, that could absolutely shape the draft. What as a hypothetical? What if they did take Curtin and all of a sudden we've got Reed on the table and it's like, well, you got Dersma, McKercher. What happens? Not that I think that'll happen, but just some crazy hypotheticals to throw out. But as you said before, Clarko is the curveball king.
Yeah. If in that situation, I think North go Reed, Dersma. If West Coast traded back with us, McKercher's all the words that's coming out. If they took Curtin, still wouldn't surprise me. That's because Curtin's not one that is a shock at that point because he's talented enough to be there. But yeah, I think at that stage it would be the one that would shock me is if they took Dersma, just because it doesn't seem they've got any links to him. But I think Dersma, Reed for us, as I said, Dersma, Reed, Karen, and a few of those guys going forward would just be extremely dangerous. And she's off that half forward line would just be a great pairing of players. Or a great grouping of players.
Absolutely. So, yeah, look, I hope there's some curveballs on the night. I hope there's curveballs for content, but not for my, my blood levels there. I think, the cholesterol would be up, the blood pressure would be up, while also thinning at the same time. So I could fully see myself passing out on that night. But hey, I have the other lads there to revive me and perform resuscitation if needed. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. 2 more. So Brent Faulkner on X/Twitter. As much as I think we should be taking McKercher, my jury is out on him sticking around once Tassie come into the competition. He says he will commit to the club that picks him in the draft, but Jason Horne-Francis also said this too. Now, we did talk a little bit about this sort of thing, not this specific thing, last week with players and homegrown, the go-home factor. Sorry. And, there is a comment that someone has replied to this, and I know Twitter is a place of much beef, but Loyal Kanga under this comment here says, Horn Francis is a rare breed. In 3 years, if McKercher is a freak and we are going well, he stays. If we're not going well, he might leave and Tassie pay overs, which I do think is kind of true. But are you at all worried about McKercher being from Tassie or, Goad the Ruckman being from South Australia? Like, is this really worrying you with any of these guys? Maybe anyone but Western Australia?
Not really. I mean, like, it is a very reasonable question to raise and think about. I mean, McKercher, for the most part, seems like, from all the interviews I've seen, like, you can only take them on their judgment and their word from what you can see. Everything seems like he's very happy to come out. He plays a lot of games over here. He spends a lot of time in Melbourne already. Often those, I mean, particularly Tassie kids, when they come over, like yourself, they get ingratiated in the culture. They like the, if you're a footy fan as well, it's the footy centre. And it's not like it's a mile away from home. I think Tassie, if he's an absolute A-grade superstar, which isn't the worst thing that happens to us, they'll go really hard at him, which would make sense. But that being said, we're, probably not in a horrendous position if he's an absolute superstar. And I'd prefer to have that option of moving a superstar than trying to find one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess the thing I'll add to that, being from Tasmania and moving up here, Tassie kids don't grow up wanting to play for Tasmania because there wasn't a Tasmanian team. This Colby hasn't grown up being like, look at this team, my local team, my team I followed, I can play for them. That was never a thing for me. I support North Melbourne. Very obviously, I support North Melbourne, but I didn't grow up with a football team in my state, and that the pathway to the AFL for kids down there has been very, very limited. As in, there's really only the state league down there, but no one really watches the state league. Kids aren't going to the state league, and I was quite good at football when I was younger. I would have made the league except for that knee injury, obviously, but I never thought of a pathway to the AFL. No one in the teams I played for thought of an AFL pathway. No one at my school that I went to was thinking of an AFL pathway down there because it was so unobtainable. Only the best of the best make it through that Tassie system because it was so void. So the one thing I'd say for Tassie in particular is kids don't grow up having a football team there to go back to. So you don't have an emotional connection. I highly, highly doubt anyone is going to have an emotional connection to Tassie when it comes in the league, especially Tasmanian players. This team hasn't been around. There's no history. They haven't grown up with it. The go-home factor for Tasmania isn't there. And I love Tasmania so much. I really, really do. But it's not there. And you haven't got that sentimental value like you would growing up being a Power fan, being a Crows fan, being a Sydney fan, a Brisbane fan, someone like that. If someone's born on the Gold Coast, they're not in 10 years' time going to be like, man, I really want to go back and play for the Gold Coast, are they? They're not. That's just a stupid thought. So it's like, it's the same with Tasmania. Does that make sense? Like, there's no emotional attachment to a team down there for these kids growing up because it doesn't exist. So I wouldn't be worried about anyone from Tasmania, wanting to go back there. Maybe they'll get some for their family, but once again, it's an hour flight. I loved coming up to Melbourne. Everyone from Tasmania goes to Melbourne all the time. This is the holiday destination for Tasmanians. So I really think it's a non-factor, especially from Tasmania. So love you, Tassie. Don't want to talk any trash about you, but yeah, that's what I feel anyway.
Yeah, an interesting point of note for that as well is that West Coast is heavily looking at him. So, and West Coast is further away. So if they're doing due diligence on him. They expect that if he went there, he would stay. So, I mean, I don't think it would be a huge.
I think every Tassie kid sort of has half an eye on leaving anyway one day. I think that's always a thing that I heard of or was always talked about as a possibility through high school and my early, or late teens and early 20s and things like that. So leaving Tasmania isn't a very unknown or a big deal for anybody who's growing up, especially in the AFL system down there. Everyone who's an AFL talent from like 15, 16 onwards down there knows that they're going to have to move. So it's not a big factor. And maybe that's why I really lack sympathy for these players that want to go home because I grew up in a place that didn't have that football team. And maybe that's something on my part to look at a little bit more. But, I lack so much sympathy for players wanting to go home and play in their states because you're an AFL player. You shouldn't understand that this is part of the game and you get paid handsomely to do so. And, I never saw that as a barrier growing up. Everyone I knew, I went to school with Jesse Lonergan, who played for the Gold Coast Suns for a lot of years, was drafted pretty high. And, I knew him since primary school, and he always knew that he was going to be moving interstate. So, it's not something I have a lot of sympathy for. And any players coming out of Tasmania are more than aware that they're going to have to move for this opportunity. So anyway, without going on another rant about that, that's sort of my position on that there. So hopefully there's some insight there, because from Tassie and knew a few people who made the College Asnies as well were the same down in Tasmania. I loosely knew them through some people, and everyone always knows you're going to have to leave Tasmania to sort of make anything in that world. So, it is what it is.
Good one.
Last question here then. Billy Wordle? I wonder if that's actually your last name, Billy. That's cool. Did you invent the game? Anyway, we can't ask him right now. We have a podcast to do. Billy says, what are... Oh, man, I'm so tired right now. It's like 11 p.m. and I've just lost it. I feel like the last half of this podcast, my vocabulary maybe hasn't been at its peak. So if anyone has listened to all of this and you're still listening to us go here, thank you so much. I love you so much. Myself and Joel, we're losing our minds here. And it is nearly 11 p.m. and I still have to edit this and watch Australia win the cricket. So look, a good and frustrating night ahead. So last question, and then I can go and do all the other tasks and then go to bed and go back to work and cry. So, all right. Billy says, what are his, as in Joel, what are Joel's thoughts on the rucks that may be available around our late first round picks? He's named Green, Goad, Mitch Edwards, Archer Reed, or any others that we may look at. Who would be the best option for North to take? So we've done some ruck chat. Who is the best for us to take?
Ooh, as a single, I'd consider Reed as a more forward/ruck, probably in the Coleman Jones mold. Mm-hmm. But I'd probably consider him more of a forward. He did move into the centre with good effect. The one that I'd probably want the most is still Green, just given Edwards has a few clouds over him, concerns. But that's not on field, that's off field stuff. Goad, though, has been coming late and he's got a lot of assets. But if I had to pick one ruckman, I would want Green first, probably Goad next. And if I drafted Reed, I'd be hoping that he's a forward.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that might do it for tonight, mate. I am cooking right now. I am cooking. But yeah, thank you to everyone who wrote in their questions again. I really do appreciate the interaction. The podcast is doing quite well and the engagement on social media and everything is doing fantastically. So I really do appreciate anyone who listens to me waffle on sometimes. I mean, look, maybe around the draft, not so much, but we are in the off season. We've had draft, we've had trades and free agency. It's going to get dry and we're going to make as much content as we can to keep everyone engaged. But no, I do appreciate anyone who's listening and engaging. Some fun podcasts to come. Like I did say before, a couple of the Close to a Flag boys should be on the pod after the draft, and we're going to record a live. We're going to record while watching the draft. You're not going to listen to it live, but you will hear our live reactions, which will be a lot of fun. And we're going to plan some other stuff for the off season as well to try and entertain everybody with some North chat, because North Melbourne is 365 days a year sometimes, unless they're really, really bad and they make me upset. But hey, we're here for it. I'm rambling now, Joel. Thank you for coming on again. And the listeners did love you last time, so maybe you'll be a little bit more regular around here.
Thanks for having me again, Josh. Much appreciated. And great questions. Thanks, everyone, for questions. I was happy to answer.
Absolutely. You really are a draft nuffy, aren't you? It's wild how much you know about the draft, man. It's crazy. It baffles me. I love it, but it baffles me.
It's good times. Great times, hopefully, for us in the future now.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for coming on again. Thank you for listening, everybody. Further North Podcast on Facebook, Further North Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. YouTube has been doing really, really well for me, and I'm planning to start filming these as well. So if you do want to jump over to YouTube, it's just Further North Podcast as well. Give me a like and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. YouTube really is doing the business for me at the moment, along with with Spotify and Apple. So thank you again, everybody. I'm going to go edit this, watch the cricket, fall asleep, and thank you for listening this far, because the last half of this podcast I've been a bit deranged. So thank you again. Thank you, Joel. And we will talk to you guys very soon.